So many of us warrior poets, we're protectors of people. So a lot of times we carry medical, we carry guns because we're ready to step in the gap and be able to protect people. We're loving protectors, right? However, a lot of us where we're thinking about carrying and those angles and timing and criminal psychology, we're not really thinking about the aftermath of a shooting. And this is a growing threat in my mind, particularly on the heels of like the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Here's a justifiable shoot. He was deemed innocent by a jury of his peers on all the evidence, yet still in the process, his life was utterly up in the air in ruins. I mean, they're trying to get this kid thrown away for life or even something worse because he was being defamed constantly. He was deplatformed. The media was at him, and then he was incurring massive amounts of legal bills. Now it's kind of fun for me to see him on the offensive, going after all these other entities which attacked him and unjustifiably. Let's return for a moment to the question at hand. What happens if you are in a justifiable shooting and it goes to court? It could be politically charged, which means everything is written large and it's really, really bad. Or maybe it is outside of the political limelight. You're still going to have massive fees and a whole heartache process just trying to prove your innocence. So what is the cost of legally and justifiably killing someone, right? Today we have a special guest. This is Joshua Prince. He is with the Firearms Industry Consulting Group. Joshua, thanks so much for joining us and answering some of our questions today.
My pleasure, John. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So tell us what you do mainly as your job.
So I'm an attorney and we handle firearms law issues at the state level in both Pennsylvania and Maryland and at the federal level across the United States. I also deal with some import-export issues internationally in relation to firearms, but pretty much summed up, if it involves a firearm, we handle it with the one exception of patents.
Got it. So we ferreted you out because, as I understand, you're in the courtroom. You're like front row seat. You're actually the one battling this out on the front lines, trying to keep good people who just wrong place, wrong time, self-defense kind of shootings. Is that correct?
Yeah, and actually just on Tuesday, we had an individual who was a USCCA member where we were successful in getting the charges dismissed, 16 separate charges at the preliminary hearing level for that member. And that's no small task because at the preliminary hearing level, it's just based on whether it is reasonable to believe that a crime occurred. Any defenses that an individual may be entitled to don't come into the equation. So, you know, we are in the courtroom dealing with these issues all the time.
Got it. So you mentioned insurance. I'd like to eventually land there in the video, but right now I want to talk about kind of just the emotional toll that you see some of your clients go through after the fact and over the following months, and also brass tacks. What are the legal bills that are racking up throughout this process? I kind of want a high, a low, and a middle. If I get in a justifiable shoot and say it's not this big high-profile case, it's just kind of in the middle, what am I looking at?
So I guess I'll start with the second question as to costs. It's really going to depend on what exactly the situation is, what type of charges you have filed against you, as well as where it occurs. Unfortunately, depending on the county in which, at least here in Pennsylvania, you end up being charged with that offense will likely depend on the cost. For example, if it's in Philadelphia County, where they have a lot of basically hearings you got to show up for where nothing happens, but it takes your time to go there, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if it occurs in a county like Berks County. Also, the political motivations behind charging will be different if you're in Philadelphia County, where pretty much they don't even understand there to ever be a justifiable use of force situation, as compared to Berks County, where it's far more conservative and less likely that an individual will be charged in any justifiable use of force situation. In relation, and for cost ideas, again, it's going to depend how quickly we might be able to get the charges thrown out. But at a bare minimum, I would tell someone you're probably looking somewhere around $20,000. And there are cases, especially when you start adding in experts and all that can easily approach $100,000. And I'd say that's kind of the general ballpark. There are outliers. Anyone who remembers the George Zimmerman trial from down in Florida, will be aware that he spent over $1 million. Now, his attorney, he didn't actually spend it, but his attorneys had incurred about $1 million worth of attorney's fees and expert fees and all that in his trial. And that was one of the most justifiable use of force cases we've ever seen prosecuted before Rittenhouse. So that gives your viewers a little bit of an idea. If you end up on appeal, yes, costs can go up. Most coverages or that don't cover appeals or that unless you're successful on appeal. But, in the grand scheme of things, could you end up with $100,000 plus cost for defense and expert fees? Yes, absolutely, you could.
Just to prove your innocence. You did the right thing, and you're just proving I didn't do anything wrong, and you're going to spend 6 figures to 7.
Yes. And the other problem is that even when you're found not guilty, you don't have a right to get your attorney's fees and costs back. There is no mechanism in the law. More than that, here in Pennsylvania, the dockets relating to your charging are still out there. They're still public. They don't get expunged unless you spend more money to petition to have them destroyed, even though you were found not guilty.
Goodness. Okay, so right now we've just talked about legal fees. There'll be other extraneous fees. I can imagine some of them, but walk through it of like all of a sudden I'm summoned to court and I just did the right thing, but now I'm doing this. I got a lawyer up and maybe I'm missing work and I got what other kind of fees of like out the door, even my general opportunity cost because I got a job. What make some guesses for us? I know a lawyer wants to say it depends and whatever, but kind of make some general assumptions and give us some dollars.
I think it would be easy to assume that you could end up spending about $50,000 in costs going through a full-blown trial between experts, potentially private detectives. I mean, if I get involved early on in a use of force situation, I'm likely going to want a private detective to go out, see if there's any witnesses that the police missed, any evidence that the police missed, if there's cameras. The other thing to be aware of is that a lot of times with the cloud storage in that, we have situations where video footage is basically overridden after a couple days. It may only be available to me for 48 72 hours. So I need to get some boots on the ground immediately out there to find out if there is any video footage or any eyewitnesses or that, so that we can ensure that that is preserved, especially where it benefits my client. But there's a lot of other costs. Like I said, we may need experts, and I've used experts in the past, including to even get cases dismissed at that preliminary hearing level, because if I can provide the district attorney with such a voluminous report showing all the ways the Commonwealth will not be able to meet its burden, then that gives the district attorney political cover to dismiss the charges and do what is in my client's best interest. I know there's some attorneys, unfortunately, out there that would prefer to prolong the litigation, be able to have more billable hours during trial and that. We always try to get our cases dismissed as soon as possible because we're aware of the impact on our clients. It is monumental. And I know that was one of the questions you had asked as well, is what is that emotional impact? And I can tell you that I don't care who you are going to have an emotional impact as a result of this, whether or not you kill the person, whether or not you even end up maiming the person. And we've had that situation. We had a situation where an individual had pulled his firearm on a bank robber and only maimed him. But the psychological impact was such that he had taken that person's life, even though they lived and only had a minor flesh wound. So there is a major, major impact. And then when you start factoring in the divorce rate, most people are aware that divorce rate somewhere around 50-60% nowadays. When you factor in that, that's a whole nother story. And I know a lot of people get frustrated with statistics because like, where'd you actually come up with them? Will just say that it is an extremely high percentage of individuals who are involved in justified use of force situations that end up going through a divorce because of it, because their other partner can't understand what they're going through. And the best analogy I can give is Chris Kyle. If you watch American Sniper and in the video, he has that break with the dog where he's somewhere else. He sees that dog as a threat. His wife eventually breaks him out of it, calling his name. And he's like, oh, where am I? And he comes back into what I would refer to as our reality. And it's that type of situation where partners can't understand what their partner who went through this use of force situation is going through. There is a form of PTSD they're going to be dealing with. They are going to need psychological counseling. Don't look at that as a stigma or a stain on you. I don't care who you are, you're going to need it, and it's for your better, because we can make you better. The psychology today, we can help get you back to who you are. You won't see that you're a different person, no different than Chris Kyle didn't initially see that he was a different person. But psychology today can help get you back to being that same person you were before that use of force situation.
Just as somebody who's been to war numerous times, Afghanistan and Iraq, and been in some pretty hairy fights and whatnot, I'll say, soldiers returning home or cops after, getting in some squirrely fights, or a civilian responding to that, just kind of for your benefit, guys. You do need some type of coping mechanism, a way to really flesh that out. I know that a wound that's covered and untreated, it festers. It's not going to get better. It'll actually get worse in growing dark secret. And so it can, like gangrene, think of that seeping in. And so you got to be able to expose and clean, and some of that's being able to offload some of those burdens with good community. That's one piece of it. You actually do have to talk about the thing and not just think, I'm an oak, I'll take it, I'll bury it deep down and I'll be good. I'm like, dude, that you're just a time bomb then. So you do need to offload that somewhere. You also need a new mission. You got to reintegrate into society and find a new inner circle and find a new mission in life apart from stacking bodies. And so you are going to have to be able to move on. I find, for me personally, I was able to work through a good bit of stuff through my faith in Jesus Christ. That was a huge thing for me, and he really helped me personally. I just wanted to be able to add that. Some people find that odd, just kind of dropped in the middle of this video, and I wasn't planning on bringing that up. It's just real. If that's real for me. So I wanted to drop that out. So you already, I thought, very well talked about kind of the emotional toll. We talked about the money, the emotional thing, and you'd brought up USCCA early. And so I want to kind of return to that, because part of my reluctance is of like, man, I'm insurance stout, of like I got life insurance and medical and dental, and then health and like property insurance and my vehicle insurance. I'm like, insurance is killing me, man. Do I really need carry insurance? I guess you don't need it until you need it, and then you really need it. But I did bite the bullet a couple years back, and I looked at all the options. I did go with USCCA for myself and my wife because I realized the cost and stuff, and I'm carrying a gun every day. You also are a member of USCCA, and your fiance, congratulations, by the way. But can you kind of speak to that stuff of USCCA insurance? You brought it up, so what do you think? What would you advise our viewers, and is that a good option, and if so, why?
So 8-10 years ago, I would have probably hesitated in telling the client or that yeah, I think you kind of need carry insurance, but things have really changed. And now I do advise my clients, if you're in a financial position to be able to obtain insurance, especially if you're in a high crime area like Philadelphia or that, where also the cost of litigation is going to be more, definitely go out and get whatever coverage you can. I always tell people, when analyzing the different insurances that are available, there's 3 key things to really look to. First, do you get to pick your attorney, or do they pick your attorney for you? Make sure you get to pick your attorney. And there is kind of 2 hybrids to that. One is kind of where you get to pick whoever you want. So if you want your cousin Vinny, who's only ever done contracts law, to be your attorney in the courtroom, you can select your cousin Vinny. Whereas some other ones say, yes, you can pick who you want, but they have to be vetted. They have to know what they're doing, have some track history experience handling these types of matters. So that's the first thing to really check. Do you get to pick your own attorney? Those where they pick the attorney for you, I can tell you based on my experience, having had them try to court me, they want to pay the attorney such a small flat fee that the attorney wouldn't even be able to procure their experts for the fee they want to pay the attorney through a trial. That attorney is going to be pleading everyone out to something. They are not going to.
That was one of the main reasons why I approached and went after USCCA. Is that but
Yep.
before you tell any more, I wanted to just go ahead and let everyone else know that I sought out USCCA and then we partnered with them. So I have a business relationship now with USCCA because I thought they were great. And so anyway, before we went on, I just wanted to let everyone know that. So anyway, as you were saying.
Oh, yeah. And just so the viewers know, I, as you had mentioned, I am a member of USCCA. I am one of their emergency response attorneys. When they formed years ago, they had a legal advisory board where I did provide some guidance to them when they were forming in that, but that has since kind of gone away. But getting back to, and so I just want to make sure everyone understands that. But getting back to the three things to really look at any insurance, the second one is whether they cover any lawful weapon or just a firearm. There are some that will only cover a firearm. So if you pull your firearm and you have a catastrophic malfunction, you can't clear it or whatever, and you go to your pocket knife as backup and you end up stabbing the person, maybe killing them, they're going to disclaim any type of coverage saying, oh, you didn't use your firearm. Whereas the others, where they provide any form of lawful weapon, will cover you regardless of the type of weapon you may end up using. And in this day and age, you could see situations where people may end up using vehicles as one example of a lethal weapon, or you may end up using your pocket knife or whatever else is around you to be able to defend you. You know, you need to be aware of that. The third thing to look to is their alcohol policy. Now, when all of them came on scene, and probably most of the viewers are thinking, yeah, well, they should disclaim if alcohol is involved, until you start really thinking that through. So let me give you an example. What happens when there's that young lady who goes on a first date, date's going well, has a glass of wine with dinner, everything's nice until after dinner. And then she's forced to have to use her firearm. Should we now prevent her from being able to use her insurance coverage because she had a glass of wine during dinner, 30, 45 minutes prior? No, that doesn't make sense. The other scenario would be, you're at home, you're maybe having a glass of whiskey or something on your couch, and you're the subject of a home invasion. They kick in the front door, come in, and now you use your firearm to defend yourself. Again, yes, alcohol was involved, but not to the level of causing the situation. So many of the different providers now provide whereby as long as you aren't charged with an alcohol-related offense, they will cover you. And then some, like USCCA, kind of have a hybrid where even if you are charged with an alcohol-related offense, they'll look at each case on a case-by-case basis. So those are really the three things when you're looking at any of the different either insurances or prepaid legals that are out there that you definitely want to consider.
If you got in a shooting with a guy and then he ran out the back door, you should tell the police, hey, I was in a shooting, he ran out the back door. You should say that. Don't say, I need to speak to my attorney. I'm like, dude, you got to tell him that, right?
Sure. And I might actually suggest having someone else call 911 because one of the situations is, as humans, when we get on the line, we want to keep talking. And the 911 operators are trained to solicit more and more information from you. And I can guarantee you'll start talking and you may make a statement innocently against your interest. And when they start asking questions, I've done a lot of use of force type classes where we're using simunitions, UTMs and that adrenaline dump, when it hits you, you would be amazed at the things people agree to. Oh, you just murdered that person? Yep. Not thinking how that will come across to a jury in the future. So I generally suggest to have a third party call 911. If there's no one else there, you call 911, say, I was just attacked. I'm at this location. I'm wearing this. Please send police and ambulance, and then hang up the phone. Do not keep the line open.
Got it. Wouldn't that third party person just as easily say something that was incorrect? They need a couple sleep cycles to process too of like, what's to say they're going to do any better than me?
And that's absolutely true. But anything you say will come in as an admission against your interest regardless. Whereas they're going to say whatever they're going to say. I don't want to compound it by now you having also said something erroneously.
So here's another question. Let's say that I'm broke as a joke and I didn't get any carry insurance. So it's just me. And I have a right to attorney. If I can't afford one will be appointed for me. A court-appointed attorney, of like, is that Russian roulette or
Unfortunately, yes. I mean,
Okay.
you may get a good public defender, but in my experience, the supermajority are overworked and they don't take the time. I actually had a situation in Lancaster County where it was, again, a USCCA member who his mother had actually got him insurance because he wouldn't have had two nickels to rub together.
Wow.
And it was one of the most justified use of force situations. He was justified to actually use lethal force, and all he did was simply pull his firearm. But he ends up getting charged. Even though all of this was caught on video, we know exactly what happened. There is no dispute about that. But he gets charged. And thankfully, as I said, he was a USCCA member, so we were able to get Andrew Bronca, who wrote the book, The Law of Self-Defense. He's an attorney, but does a lot of expert consulting. I got a 118-page report from Andrew before the preliminary hearing that I was able to give to the district attorney and say, here's 118 pages of all the ways you're not going to be able to make your case. Now, that same individual, if he did not have that coverage, I have no doubt he would have ended up with a public defender and would have ended up pleading out to something, likely an offense that would prohibit him for the rest of his life from being able to purchase, possess, utilize firearms and ammunition. But because he was a member, we were able to do that. And I believe that report, because I needed it expedited, cost me like $12,000. But USCCA paid for it, and we got those charges dismissed.
They are getting quite the shout out. That's fantastic. All right, well, you're welcome, guys. There you go. By the way, just to be fair, there's some other good organizations out there that do carry insurance as well. Just USCCA is my favorite, and it seems like it's yours as well. So what kind of firearm do you carry?
I love my HKs. P30SK is one of my more summer guns. Now, I do have a Glock 19 as well. So I know there's probably a lot of Glock fans, but I am a diehard HK fan.
Got it. No sweat. And actually, this is the real last question. Who is your favorite organization to get training from, and why is it Warrior Poet Society?
Well, I love Craig Douglas. And
you said Warrior Poet Society. He's Warrior Poet Society Network. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, it's right. Okay. It's okay. You're my second.
Sorry,
you're my second favorite
You're
my second favorite self-defense attorney. You were number one, and then you swing and a miss. Here, now, we love Craig. He's on our Warrior Poet Society Network, so his classes are on our streaming service, WPSN. But have you trained with Craig?
For him, that was why it came out. Now I love Craig, but no, there are so many great organizations in Pennsylvania. One is Lodestone Training, and they do some phenomenal work. And it's a bunch of current and former special forces. And we could probably do a whole show on whether, because the rules of engagement are different for military than they are for the public, whether you should seek out former military and such as your instructors. But I got to tell you, having taken so many classes with them, I have never once been concerned with the guidance and training that they've provided. So, I really think Lodestone is doing a great service here in the Commonwealth.
Yep. Training is critical. So some folks who can't get in-person training, I know USCCA has like a added benefit. One of their key pillars is training and education. So I've watched some of their online stuff. I thought it was pretty darn good. I've been in person to train with them as well, and I really like their staff as well. So that's another place where people go get training and education. Right. Where can folks find you, and are you accepting more clients?
Yes, we are accepting more clients. If you are involved in any use of force situation, do not speak with the police. Get your attorney involved right away. Most people don't, or aren't aware, I should say, that even where a law enforcement officer is involved in a use of force situation, they generally will not make a statement for somewhere around 48 to 96 hours. DEA actually has a little yellow card they give all of their agents to hand out, and they will not speak for 120 hours. It's one of the few instances where our memory is not as clear immediately after the situation as it will be in 24 to 46 hours. So that's really why I really say, do not speak with the police. Contact your attorney and get good legal advice immediately.
Really appreciate you guys. Joshua Prince, everyone, self-defense lawyer. Folks, train hard, train smart, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Links down below for relevant information for yourselves, and we'll see you next time. The only way to get good at gunfighting is to do gunfighting. There's no other way around it. You can practice draw strokes ad nauseum. You can get really good at fundamentals and emergency reloads, maybe even run around a flat range shooting at some steel targets, but there is no substitute for force-on-force training. What we do in Pistol 3, aside from teaching some really important skills, some combative elements, a little bit of tactics bringing in, is we allow students to revel in the chaos and the confusion, the adrenaline of a real force-on-force encounter.